Welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. I am Scott Powell, President and Chief Executive Officer of Skyline Corporate Communications Group, LLC. On behalf of OTC Markets and Skyline Corporate Communications Group, we are very pleased to have you join us for the Small Cap Growth Conference. The next presentation is from Corero Network Security PLC. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter at any time. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Chris Goulden, Chief Financial Officer of Corero Network Security PLC, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the ticker symbol DDOSF and on the LSE AIM under ticker symbol CNS. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the introduction, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning to talk about Corero, what we've done over the past couple of years, and how we're positioning the company for future growth. So before we move on, just to confirm, there's no forecasts or forward-looking statements in this presentation. So just an opening slide then on who we are and what do we do. So Corero, we are an innovator in the DDoS space. DDoS is a category of cybersecurity, which is fundamentally aimed at attack types targeting taking down your network and taking down availability to your data and to your network. We have some unique capabilities in the space, and I'll talk about those later. But primarily, we are faster and more flexible than our competition. Through financial year 2025, we saw ARR growth of just short of 24%. And our customers tell us that we're doing a good job. We have consistent 98% customer retention. Over the past kind of 12 to 18 months, we've been on a significant journey of new product innovation, and I'll talk to that on a slide later on. Combined with that, in terms of our growth strategy, expanding beyond the US, which is our primary market, and Europe, we've been growing into areas such as LATAM and Middle East quite nicely over the past 12 to 18 months. So we believe we're well positioned for growth. We have an expanding portfolio and product set that we're taking to market, and I look forward to taking you through where we are. So what is DDoS? So DDoS is an element of service availability within the cybersecurity space. Most cybersecurity attacks are aimed at accessing your data, trying to steal your data or compromise your data. The attack type that we protect against is people who are trying to prevent you from accessing your data or prevent your customers from accessing the data and the service that you provide. So the attack types that we're defending against, the attacks come fundamentally from vulnerabilities in the internet protocols. So these aren't vulnerabilities in your software or your network necessarily. These are fundamental internet protocol vulnerabilities that are exploited by bad actors. And we've developed a nice solution that quite nicely defends against these attacks. The best way to think of it is if you take a water system, the water that's pumped from the municipality or from the water company into your home. So the pipe that comes from the water facility into your home, if you imagine that is internet traffic going across the internet, and you would like to see 100% clean water coming through your pipe, bad actors will try and overwhelm that stream and put dirty water in there. So particulates and types of water that really could get through into your system and dirty the clean water that you hope to get in your home. What we do is we provide filters against those particulates, against that dirty water, both upstream at the water company or the municipality, downstream in your home, and also live within that pipe. So a kind of three-way threat really to counter against the type of attacks. Now, DDoS in the service availability market, some stats there for you. This is data that we've taken from our threat research team, what we see within our kind of customer space and what we see in the broader industry. So 12 attacks a day per customer. And it's not a one-time attack. You know, we see kind of 1 in 3 customers being attacked again within 7 days. Each minute that these attacks are successful and take your system down cost on average around $6,000. So if you imagine you are a provider, take Netflix, for instance, and you are providing streaming services to your customers. If attackers are able to get in there and overwhelm your network and prevent your customers from streaming, that takes away your revenue stream potentially. And it's a sizable market. You know, industry estimates at the moment around $5 billion, growing in around the 15% CAGR range. And you know, at the moment we have a nascent share of that market, which is our real opportunity of how it will grow. So to say, DDoS and service availability is a growing market, and there are a number of factors that are driving that industry growth. The first one being the threat landscape itself, and the growth and the evolution of attack types and technology available to bad actors in this space. So some highlights from our recent threat intelligence report that we issued earlier this quarter. Attacks are getting much bigger. So we're seeing, you know, 262% increase on these largest attack sizes. Attacks are getting faster, and they're also getting smarter. So previously attackers might send an attack, leave it, hope that it works. With new tools that are available to them, they're able to kind of real-time monitor the success of the attack types and very quickly alter the vectors and send multiple vectors at the same time, really to see what works. Some notable attacks and kind of industries on the right-hand side there for you. But primarily what it's suggesting is no industry is safe from this type of attack. And even some of the big names you'll see there who have been taken down by these type of attacks over the recent years. So as well as the threat landscape, there are 2 other significant factors that are really driving awareness and spend in this industry. Firstly, over the past couple of years, we're seeing significant increases in governance, regulation, compliance, primarily driven around or driven from the protection of critical infrastructure. So healthcare, data centers now, you know, government facilities. There are now regulations across Europe, in the US, across the wider globe that state specifically that to protect critical infrastructure, you need to have, you know, significant cyber security protection. And for the first time ever, DDoS is specifically named in those regulations. So previously, DDoS, the sell on DDoS was almost like insurance, whereby, you know, particularly a customer who hadn't necessarily received a DDoS attack, we were selling the future protection rather than a particular use case. In these industries now, and broadening wider beyond that, it is now a legal requirement to have significant DDoS protection in there. So that's driving customers towards us, as well as those customers that we are actively chasing ourselves. Now, I also mentioned data centers, with the significant growth in AI tooling and compute requirements. Data center growth keeps increasing at a tremendous rate. And as I mentioned, data centers are part of the critical infrastructure requirement in most countries. And also data centers themselves, just by their very nature, need secure DDoS protection. So with the growth in data centers, that's driving additional need for DDoS. New customers and existing customers, you know, there are so many new data center companies out there who've received funding and are growing at a significant rate. It's really expanding the market for us. One other thing with data centers and critical infrastructure that is interesting is with certain instances or incidents that have happened around the world, there's a growing need from certain countries and around sovereignty, around data sovereignty in particular. So Corero's on-premises solution, which is in your network, in your country, helps to solve a lot of those sovereignty requirements that are increasingly becoming important to customers in countries where this is now becoming a legal requirement. So Corero's solution is primarily an on-premises solution. So what does that mean? Really, it means our solution, which is software-led, sits in your network, on your network or adjacent to your network, but close to the source. And that matters because technically this is the most effective solution to have a quicker detection and mitigation response. So there's a trend within software and applications in general to move everything to the cloud. And there are a lot of cloud DDoS suppliers out there, and cloud has its place for certain attack types. But in terms of the speed of detecting and mitigating the most complex type of attacks, on-premise is really where you get that benefit. Now, experts agree that a hybrid approach is actually technically superior. So having an on-premise solution supported by a cloud solution that you can swing to at time of need, that is the technically superior solution. And we have that hybrid solution available to us with some of our key alliance partners who are cloud DDoS experts. So why does Corero's solution come out technically superior to our competition? There are a number of reasons. I would say firstly, our view is our competition haven't been innovating in this space over the past number of years. And so our technology has kind of reached parity and moved beyond what they're able to do. But it's also fundamentally based on how we have built the solution. So with our solution being a software solution, it has some unique differences and benefits relative to our competitors' solution. So our competitors have built their code to the chipset of a hardware unit, which means the customer is tied into the hardware that they've bought from the customer, from the competition, I should say. It's really difficult to upgrade and change software when it's written into the chipset itself. Our software is downloadable and by that very nature, it's very easy to kind of update and refresh. Within that, we're able to flexibly deploy our software. So it is hardware agnostic. So we sell our own hardware, but there's nothing necessarily special about our hardware. It has just been built in a way that maximizes the potential output and the speed of our software, but we can be deployed on any of the big name servers, and we can even be deployed virtually. So we often get asked the question, why do our competition not move towards that model? Now, even if it was technically available to them to do so, they have this commercial issue whereby they have this huge hardware-led estate with their existing customers. And if they were to move to a software-only model, they would potentially have an issue of what do they do with the existing revenue at renewal time on their hardware that could be deprecated by moving to a software model. So we integrate better with customers' existing platforms because we don't have this hardware dependency. And the way that our kind of software and the communication around the software with other platforms has been built makes us very easy to work with and very flexible to deploy, which is very important for our customers. So yeah, I talked a little bit about our uniqueness. So the platform agnostic software solution, that's our primary uniqueness, and that's what differentiates us technically in the market. Because we are on-prem, we mitigate in real time. So we have a data center customer that we onboarded 18 months ago. And we have a very nice case study that we use from them that tells us their previous supplier would mitigate certain types of DDoS attacks in a matter of minutes. And deploying the Corero solution has brought that mitigation time down to 18 seconds. So a significant improvement for them and really meaningful impact for their business. I talked about the flexibility of our deployment options. That's key for the architects and the engineers who are making the technical decision for our customers. And we're also commercially flexible. So we offer the ability to buy the solution upfront, to take it on a subscription basis or over a number of years. That actually does really help customers, sometimes relative to our competition as well, who might be a bit more rigid in their pricing and their commercial offerings. And finally, we have a fully managed service specifically for DDoS and service availability. We are the only DDoS supplier in the space that came from DDoS and looked at DDoS specifically, rather than DDoS being an addition to a previous platform. That means that our managed service offering is actually skilled in DDoS and offers the best managed service offering relative to competition, which becomes meaningful. DDoS as an expertise in the cyberspace is quite niche. So having the ability to take that burden off the customer is helpful when it comes to competitive situations. So this is a nice slide. There's an industry analyst called QKS, one of the few analysts in the cyberspace who do this matrix specifically for DDoS. This is the matrix that they put together in Q3 2025. And you'll see that Corero has been highlighted in the upper right section, which is an industry leader. This was the first time that we've moved into that segment. So we've moved up from a customer impact perspective, and we've moved across to the right from a technology excellence perspective, primarily because a lot of the development work that we did through 2025 and the demonstrable impact that we've had in the industry with customer wins. So as well as now being named as a leader in the space, we were the company identified as the emerging innovator in the space, which is something that we're particularly proud of. We've put a lot of efforts into innovating the product and expanding the product set over the past 12 to 18 months. And so it's pleasing to see that recognition. Likewise, we received a couple of industry awards at RSA in San Francisco recently. We retained our most innovative DDoS protection solution award as well, which is nice recognition again of the innovation work that we've been doing. Another interesting point in this matrix, you'll see in the strong contenders category, some huge names with huge R&D budgets to spend. And you'll see that they are lower down the matrix from a technology excellence perspective, which I think demonstrates that, regardless of your budget and your capability, it's a difficult solution to technically counter. So from a barriers to entry perspective, the technology requirement needed to protect and mitigate against these very complex and very quick attacks is quite high. So I've talked about innovation. You'll see the timeline across the bottom there of how we've been releasing additional capabilities and products on the platform. I like to liken it to, fundamentally for a number of years, Corero has had a really good on-prem or a market-leading on-prem DDoS solution. But if you imagine you were walking into, a unnamed burger chain and they did the best burger, that would be great. But typically you would like fries and a milkshake to go with your burger. Now, Corero never had these fries or the milkshake previously to add to the burger. So if you were a customer looking to get a meal deal, it was difficult sometimes to put that aside and buy your burger from one establishment and go and have to buy your fries and milkshake elsewhere. So one of the primary reasons for this significant product development over the past 12 to 18 months is to enhance and to incorporate these adjacent capabilities that are quite frequently bought alongside DDoS. So you'll see on the right-hand side there, we've got observability and analytics, API protection and kind of application layer protection, performance monitoring and zero trust. So I've included the market sizes there just to give an indication of this is why we chose these capabilities in the first instance. There's a market there and there's a need. There's a known customer need to buy these capabilities alongside DDoS. So we don't necessarily intend to compete in these markets, but they're a nice complementary product alongside our DDoS that fundamentally keeps us in RFPs longer. So what we saw previously was we would enter an RFP where the incumbent was one of our competitors. Typically, they would help the customer write the RFP, and they would be able to box Corero out because we didn't have some of the capabilities that they did that they could write into the RFP as a mandatory requirement. So now that we have these capabilities, we're not precluded from RFPs on the basis of technology. We stay in the RFP longer. And typically, when we get to the point of proving out the technology, we are very successful. So some numbers. So financial year 2025 was an interesting one for Corero. We saw a shift in customer buying behavior. So we primarily sell in two commercial models. We either sell as an upfront purchase or we sell on a subscription basis. We saw a significant movement away from upfront purchases towards subscription through 2025. I think there were a number of external factors that drove that. There were some tariff uncertainties in the US in the first half of the year. And then the economic landscape changed, or the global economic landscape changed with some conflicts around the world, which aren't helping in terms of customer commits and decision making. So where we saw revenue grow at 4% over the prior year, we saw ARR grow by 23%. So this really was, we saw a 20% increase in order intake, but more of that order intake was moving to subscription, so future year revenue rather than upfront in-year revenue. So it sets us up nicely coming into 2026. Gross margins remain strong, so consistently at the 90% level. Mentioned earlier, the customers telling us that we're doing a good job and 98% of them renewing. We're around 90 people. We're headquartered out of London. We have our engineering in Edinburgh in Scotland and our security operations center primarily based out of Massachusetts. 50 plus country footprint, that's expanding almost every month as we get more successful in some of these non-US, non-EU countries. So here's some of the trends in terms of the financial KPIs. Things to touch on here. Consistent revenue growth. We've accelerated our ARR growth in 2025, as I mentioned, with a change in customer buying habits. Despite that, no impact on gross margin, staying at 90%. That's driven by our software-led nature. So hardware typically makes up less than 50% of our revenue, which means the gross margins stay high. You'll see cash in 2025 and EBITDA both impacted by that move away from upfront CapEx deals, upfront purchases towards subscription. So historically, we would have seen 60% of our revenues on a kind of subscription basis. So 40% of revenues as one time upfront. That moved more to a 70-30 split in 2025. So effectively 10% of revenues pushing out of current year into future years. Some further breakdown in terms of our revenue segment. So top left there, you'll see the geographic split. So the Americas at 70% and the rest of the world at 30%. 2 years ago, that would have been an 80-20 split. But as we've moved into some of the other geographic regions and I guess refocused a little bit on other major markets like the UK and had more success there, that split is changing. Bottom left, you'll see the breakdown of our commercial model. So the dark blue being software license and appliances. That's the upfront revenue, if you like. So in 2025, 32% of our revenue was kind of one-time upfront revenue. Green being maintenance and support. So we have 100% attachment rate on licenses for maintenance and support. And the lilac being the subscription model. So roughly 2/3 of our revenue almost 70% now on a recurring basis. And you can see on the right-hand side there the trend of the ARR and a nice uptick in the tangent of that graph in 2025. Cap table, you'll see strong ownership of long-term shareholders who are aligned with the long-term interest of the business. The only dilutive effect on the cap table really is some options that senior and long-term employees have. Cash in the bank to do what we need with. And yeah, small breakdown. We have some nice institutional investors in the UK on the register. So in summary, DDoS and service availability, it's a multi-million-dollar market and it's growing nicely. That growth is being accelerated by regulation and AI and data center needs. We are the innovator in the space. Our platform, our portfolio is now at least at parity with our competition, in many places on these adjacent products ahead of what the competition is doing. Customers like what we do and they demonstrate that through our retention rates. I touched on data centers and AR. That really is AI, really is the kind of growth engine for the DDoS space, and that's something that we are riding the coattails of. Regulation again, really, the product development that's happened over the past 12 to 18 months has really positioned the company to target larger, more household name customers who have these requirements. And previously we were focused on MSPs and service providers. These additional capabilities now allow us to move into the enterprise space and really open up additional market opportunities for us. So thank you. That's the presentation. We have a few minutes left and we're open to some questions from the floor if there are any. Okay, so first question, competitive displacements are a big driver. Once you rip and replace a legacy vendor, how often do those customers expand beyond the initial footprint? Great question. So yes, you will notice in our bookings chart that I showed earlier, our order intake increases every year. The breakdown of that order intake, which is related to upselling existing customers, that as a percentage remains flat-ish, but that dollar number is increasing every year. And that's primarily because the space that we operate in and the customers that take our product, they're typically growing. And we price on a capacity basis. So how much network traffic effectively is being protected by our solution. So as our customers grow and their capacity needs increase, they reach their license limits and we naturally upsell them from a license perspective. But additionally, now that we have the increased product portfolio with some of these additional adjacent capabilities, that's a great opportunity for us to upsell to existing customers who have this need. One of the other things that we are very successful at and that we work closely with our service provider customers is service providers are actually able to turn their Corero DDoS protection into a commercialized product for their customers. So they can protect their end user customers and they can sell that using the solution that we provide them. So again, as they grow and their customer base grows, their capacity needs increase and we're able to upsell on that basis as well. Next question then, around 70% of revenue is already recurring. How far can that mix realistically go as a protection as a service keeps ramping? Another great question. As CFO, I would love the percentage of revenue being recurring to be as high as possible. It really helps me from a forecasting perspective and a decision-making perspective. The truth of it is we're kind of seeing equal and opposite impacts on the percentage of revenue being recurring. So on the kind of tier 2, tier 3 service provider market, we're still seeing preference towards subscription. The unwillingness to kind of commit that levels of cash up front and taking it over the term. However, at the same time, because we now have the additional product portfolio and the size and the scope of customers that we are now able to target, some of these customers prefer, because they have the budget and the cash, to buy on an upfront CapEx basis. So, you know, it's a kind of watch and see, if I'm honest, the kind of both being a good thing, increasing the number of tier 2, tier 3 service providers, but also now being able to target larger enterprises as well. I'm conscious of time. There are a lot more questions on my screen, actually, that we're not able to get to. I'm told that I'll be sent these questions and contact details, so I can address them separately and get the answers to these questions back to you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate the questions. Yes, watch this space. Thank you.